Hello, it's Cried here, with the Armored Core 6 patch 1.07 breakdown, with actual numbers and insights. Sorry, I was too busy during the 1.06 patch. Let's begin by looking at the weapon buffs, starting with the melee weapons. There are plenty of mistranslations for the patch notes, but I will be listing the correct changes. The charged version of Laser Blade and Laser Lance are buffed, while the overall strongest melee weapon in more competitive PvP scenes, the Plasma Thrower or the Hammer, is nerfed. The Laser Blade is not that great of a punish option after a stagger, so I'm guessing they want it to be a bit more rewarding to use it outside of stagger punishes, just like the Laser Lance as well. The Coral Oscillator is another melee weapon that got buffed. This has always been a fairly decent melee option that can be used both as a chasing tool and a stagger punish tool. But it was and is the most expensive melee in terms of energy load, so it is nice to see that the energy cost is scaled back a bit. I think this weapon might do quite well for a hybrid build now, and not just in a melee focused one, especially with all the melee specialization buffs for arms seen later in the notes. The Curtis got a slight projectile speed increase and recoil decrease, but this is not a significant change. I had hoped that they would seriously buff some of the weaker rifles like Runset 2 AR as well. A massive buff to its projectile speed and a bit more damage increase can turn it into a long-range option that will differentiate it from other rifles. A small bullet velocity buff to Ludlow and Changcheng, and also a bit of recoil reduction to Changcheng, which was just a weaker Ludlow. Not big changes. The Tsujin was definitely overbuffed in patch 1.06, and straight up beat both the Ludlow and Changcheng easily, so this tuneback was not unexpected. Though, I do believe that these machine guns can use a small buff across the board now, even just a 5% accumulated impact buff to make them good. The Ducat, which was perhaps the weakest pistol, got a fairly big damage buff, and also some impact and magazine size buff. This puts this pistol at the highest DPS out of the pistols when considering reload, but I don't think Ducat is OP, because it still loses out on other aspects. It's just nice that there are legitimate choices to pick this weapon now. For the bazookas, the less used ones got a small cost buff. Not a big change, but a welcomed one, just like the grenade launcher changes. The Therapist took a small nerf. I suspect that its AoE nature made the kiting with the weapon quite annoyingly consistent, despite not having high stats. The Flamethrower got its weight greatly decreased, which definitely makes it easier to fit into potential builds. Next, for the laser weapons. The laser rifle received a slight tune-up, making laser kite builds stronger with this weapon. The charged attack of the laser shotgun received a significant buff, especially to its projectile speed and cooling. I've tested this weapon out already, and I'm enjoying how it is currently performing. It's a weapon where there's a good reason to use both its uncharged and charged attacks too, making the gameplay a lot more fun. The laser handgun received a tiny buff when you decide to cancel your charge attack, while the plasma rifle also received a tiny bit of projectile speed increase to its uncharged attack. Nothing major like the KRSV, which received a huge buff to its uncharged attacks and also a buff to cooling. It actually means that the KRSV has high damage and accumulated impact when you don't let it overheat now. Definitely a well-deserved buff for this extremely costly weapon's uncharged shots to not be trash. I definitely see some potential for the KRSV to perform in more competitive settings now. The also very costly Coral Rifle received a buff too, which is well-deserved in my opinion. The increased projectile speed makes it fairly good even at mid-range, and the decreased heat buildup allows for one more shot if you were to fire consecutively. For the back weapons, they did not translate the shield changes well. and the 61 PS is actually nerfed, although not by much. However, this nerf definitely makes a small difference over the long run, and some of the weaker and more conditional shields received a buff to make them more spammable, and not as punishing when you don't use them perfectly. I do believe that the shield changes this time will change the shield preference for some people, which is great. The Xiaowei's heat buildup is actually decreased and not increased, while its recoil is reduced. The heat buildup translates to 2 extra shots. The recoil reduction is nice too, as this weapon had quite the high recoil for a back weapon. Morley got a tad bit of a buff too. The spread reduction helps hitting people one quick boost away more consistently. Some back missiles were also buffed. The homing time of split missiles are reduced, while the reload time of dual missiles are reduced. The active homing missile launcher is also buffed. I think this is quite worth using, even over the 2-shot version, because you can spam them more often to make it annoying for the enemy to keep track of. As for the frame parts, plenty of pieces are buffed too. A lot of the headpieces are buffed across several stats. Even though not all of the changes make a big impact, it definitely increased the headpiece variety for optimized builds. Headpieces like the VE44A and Melander C3 are nice defensive options that are cheaper on energy load and weight. It makes the final tuning step for ACs a bit more interesting and varied for sure. The core pieces also brought some nice changes. If you've watched my core video, you will know that both the Melander and Melander C3 are straight up weak core options. They did well buffing medium core pieces that are quite similar, making them closer in power. The majority of the arm buff are melee specialization buffs. While I do not think that this is going to shift melee-focused builds off the Basho arms, this might help produce potential hybrid options. They've also nerfed the Tianlao arms to make you pay with your firearm specialization for its extraordinarily high defensive capabilities. I don't think any build that stresses on shooting accuracy will be taking these arms anymore. Greatly reducing the energy load cost on Salad also means that this will now be an actually useful alternative if you want something more defensive than the typical ephemeral arms and have the weight to spare. As for the legs, many of them received a jump distance increase, and the knocked rider legs and the heavy biped legs received a nerf. It makes sense that the knocked rider's additional jump distance and height made it the best option for lightweight ACs that are altogether trying to not get hit at all. With the lightweight leg tweaks though, I definitely expect fewer knocked riders and more Alba and Firmeza legs. The heavy bipeds received a defensive nerf to make them not too stat dense compared to the other heavyweight options. Reverse joints also got a slight tweak, but the Kaswar buff is barely meaningful. I'd just run the Mine Beta if I need more carry weight thanks to the speed curve. The Spring Chicken stability increase is nice though. Lammergeier received another speed nerf as the previous one was definitely not enough. Alongside a stability nerf, I think the Lammergeier will still be good, just not OP for something so easy to use. The wheelchairs got a slight tune-up, but I think most people will still prefer the Lammergeier. Melee thrust speeds are increased for the 3 following boosters. As I said, they're definitely trying to push a bit more for potential hybrid setups that aren't heavily melee focused but uses melee as a tool. The Flugo in particular looks like it is in a very good spot as an alternative to Kikaku without hard committing into melee. A slightly lowered QB cost for Berzel is nice after it took a hit to its assault boost capabilities. Increased AB thrust for the 1-2-3-4-5 booster and Gills booster. The buff to the 1-2-3-4-5 booster in particular should help with heavier setups like tetrapods that do well with the booster while hovering. It'll help these setups chase better with assault boost when needed. The FCS change is not a huge surprise. AC6 has been fairly close range oriented, so the Oculus was definitely overperforming. This change makes sure that only those who seriously focus on close range will still pick the Oculus, as missiles now suck with the Oculus. The patch also opens up better close to mid-range options. Until they give us better long-range rifle buffs though, the changes to the VE FCS series will not be enough to save long-range setups. The generator changes is definitely another section that has increased variety in 1.07. At higher PvP ranks, energy capacity is quite important for running and chasing, so it is not a surprise that many of the less used generators got a buff, while Suntai got a nerf. They made sure to buff generators that were competing for roughly around the same role, like the Hokushi and the VP20C both. Continuing with the 1.06 buff, the VP20D got buffed once more, as it seems like they're trying to make this a high energy output generator more suited for energy weapons. The VE20A still sucks quite a lot, and the second most popular generator, the large coral generator, is also nerfed. The nerf here isn't huge, but it is definitely trying to nudge you towards some of the other options. Like and subscribe. If you want to support my work, please consider buying my fantasy novel or donating to my Patreon down below. With the book purchase, you can also request a topic from me. Krite, signing out.